Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Qapla, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Picard, Season 2, Episode 7, Monsters. And this episode opens on a sun outside a window of a starship, and they zoom in, and they turn out to have this 3D hologram of the same sun on the desk. And Picard is for some reason dressed in the same tuxedo he was dressed in his gala that he got hit by a car in. And we have Gaius Baltar, or at least the actor who played Gaius Baltar on Battlestar Galactica Reimagined, is Picard's therapist. And he's giving Picard some sort of test. And at first we think, what is this? Initially, we get the impression that he's trying to get Picard thrown out of the service for some reason. But later, we have all different reasons. So anyway, the big reveal that Picard reveals to his therapist is that Picard has had claustrophobia this entire time. Captain Picard secretly suffered from claustrophobia, and his going out into space on a spaceship where he can never get out into the real world was his way of dealing with claustrophobia. And that's the highest. Things go downhill quickly as the therapist says, why is it that even your closest friends call you captain? And Picard's like, this is absurd. He's like, this is just a routine psych evaluation. You need to deal with it. And by the way, Picard says, I'm not going to waste 40 minutes. And he's like, it's only been 20 minutes. And he's got an hour. He's got to be there. So Picard's like, you're looking for something, anything to relieve him from command. And he's like, no. He's like, you got to give me something. You don't want to talk, but I got to tell somebody I spent an hour here with you. So tell me a story. And Picard pretends like, he says, tell me some good jokes. And Picard doesn't know any jokes. He's like, well, then just tell me a story. And Picard pretends like he can't talk up a children's story. He's like, any story, a children's story would be a simple kind of exercise. Come on, Picard, just think this is Darmok and Jalad. Just tell a story. Whatever you got to do, you can tell any story you want to tell. So instead, Picard starts talking about how there was a queen who was a female. Yes, a queen who was a female. Even Baltar here has to give that the old facial palm, and just once upon a time there was a queen who was a female. Oh, she had fiery red hair. Anyway, it's ridiculous. Of course, the queen he's talking about, is it the Borg Queen? Because that's what we were assuming it would be. No, it was his mother. And in this episode, his mother has always been the one we thought this season who was running around saving Picard from being physically assaulted, perhaps, by his father. And Picard, Jean-luc, was obviously hated his father, because up to this point, we thought he was physically assaulting his mother. But in this episode, which I'll be honest, even though I watched it twice now, I still don't really follow it. But they've basically blurred the lines between what's real and what isn't. But I figured out his mother is not the savior we thought she was. It turns out his mother was nuts. His mother was just your average hysterical, crazy woman. And I don't mean to put down women by saying that, but this is what they're showing us. They're showing us a woman who last week I would have given, an award to for trying to overcome all the problems that were at her doorstep. But now we find out the mother's just nuts. The mother was just nuts. And the father, who, spoiler, the father turned out to be Gaius Baltar. Yes, Captain Picard did not recognize his own father, because his own father was happened to have a DS9 First Contact era uniform on to pretend to be a psychiatrist, which he isn't. But it turns out the father was giving Picard advice all along, and he knew the mother was incapable of caring for Picard. And in this flashback, what did the mother do? The mother left Picard for dead. Picard's mother left Picard for dead. And the father was telling him things all his life to prepare him for the day his mother finally cracked. And she did. She left Picard for dead. And you know what? It's not just tunnels under Chateau Picard. It is full-on Game of Thrones level dungeons below Chateau Picard. It's much worse than anything you could imagine. It's scary bad. And the mother isn't just a hippie. The mother is full-on psychotic. Okay? I mean, shit is pulling her into walls. She's got her son dressed up like a fucking prince, and they're painting in a fucking villa or something, and it's just ridiculous. I thought this episode was going to start, and Picard was saying, this starts with a princess or a queen who's a female. I honestly thought for the first half of this episode that they were going to say Picard is trans, or Picard wants to be trans. And I'm not 100% sure that they're going to give up on that. We still have episodes 8, 9, and 10. And I really think that by the 10th episode, perhaps sooner, the big secret is going to be revealed that Picard always wanted to be a woman. And that maybe Q is going to give him a chance to live his life as a woman. It is weird. It's kind of freaky, but I wouldn't put it past Patrick Stewart to do that, because it's the kind of thing he'd want to see done in 2022. He's already kissed a man on the lips, so there's no reason to do that. But he would now say, I was trans all along, and now I can't wait for Q to let me live my life as an authentic woman. And so we're gonna see like a 2-minute montage of all TNG scenes at the end of this season. And it's going to be Picard as a woman instead of Picard as a man. And we'll see how it really doesn't change history much, but it makes him feel better. And so next season, when we get to see the whole rest of the crew, they're going to meet Captain Picard, the woman, instead of Captain Picard, the man. That's my guess. That's my guess. Anyway, back to this episode. Raffi and Seven finally decide to beam to the La Sirena to look for Jurati, because Seven saw video of Jurati beaming away from the La Sirena, and it turns out she can see it was Borg code. Oh, Raffi is going off about how Seven and Raffi are the main characters, and Rios and Jurati, they're the side plot. And Rios says, yeah, Jurati tried to kiss him, or did kiss him, right before they left. So that got Raffi jealous that Seven didn't kiss her, I guess. So Raffi's jealous. So Seven tries to turn on the ship, and the ship is locked out. And it's like, who did it? And Seven's like, you mean what did it? And she says, this is a clone. This is not clone. This is Borg technology. This is Borg code. So she's like, that means the Borg Queen's still alive. And then she brings up the picture, and she sees Jurati doing Borg tech. And she's like, uh-oh, the Borg Queen is alive in Jurati. And now the Borg Queen is going to go take over South America. Now the Borg Queen is going to take over North America. Okay, so we go back to Picard's vision, and remember, Laris has this tool, and Laris is going to go into Picard, so do a reverse mind meld. And now we figured out, how did Laris the human know what the fuck a reverse mind meld even is? Well, guess what? We finally get to see Laris's ear, and Laris's ear is pointed. So you're telling me this entire time nobody checked her fucking ear? They just assumed that her hair covered the ear, that she assumed she was human? No, you schmuck. You always check the ear. So yes, Laris really is Romulan. Laris really is Romulan. We, the audience, see this at the beginning of the episode. At the end of the episode, after she gets Patrick Stewart back from his dream, she's like, oh, by the way, Jean-Luc, I want to show you something you deserve to know. And he's like, what? And she takes her hair, she parts her hair, and you can see that Romulan ear. He's like, you're Romulan, I knew it. You are an ancestor. And then she's like, yeah, well, sometimes, and this is the Gary 7 arc. She's like, they try to use the same species, but sometimes they use a close species. And that completely destroys the Gary 7 philosophy. The entire reason, if you go back to the TOS episode, that they even considered listening to Gary 7 is because Gary 7 was a human being, and he was from that time period. Now, yes, he got kidnapped as a kid and brainwashed or whatever, instructed on how to become an agent, but he was literally from that time period. And above all, he was a human being. Had he not been human, or he not been from the time period, Kirk and Spock and McCoy would have told him to go pound sand. So, is this woman even from the Gary 7 program? I don't even know, but it doesn't sound good. So anyway, she puts on this device, which is, of course, made to fit her Romulan ear. So we had to see it. Anyway, so she enters Picard's dream, and baby boy Picard is saying, we need to stay put. Mom always said that if we get separated, stay put. And like, he's not leaving without his mother. And you can't just find her, we have to save her. Anyway, so not Laris says, okay, we'll save her. So basically the kid, Jean-luc, says everything down here is on his side. There's a monster upstairs, and everything down here in the catacombs or whatever the fuck, the terrible dungeons built under Chateau Picard, they're all under his father's control. We'll learn soon, of course, that the father was the one actually looking out for Picard, not the mother. So Picard is having the therapy session with Boltar, aka Daddy Picard, and he's like, how dare you inquire about me? He's like, I heard you were a hard patient. He's like, how dare you inquire about my medical records? You doctor, you son of a bitch. He's like, we're all here for you, Picard. Say something real and you'll wake up. One real thing. He's like, why do you think we're here? Picard realizes he's stuck. And he's like, we are stuck. He's like, who are you really? It's like, I'm a studier of the human condition, Captain. Diplomatic, cultured, and affinity for the arts. He's talking about Picard. And Picard's like, relevance? What's the relevance of all this? Boltar says, why do you find it so difficult to open, Jean-luc? To let people in. It's like, tell us the truth. You always knew you were a woman. I'm kidding. But I'm pretty sure that's where it's going. He says, there's a version of yourself you hide. Something you don't want others to see. A darker version. A female version. No. A secret shame. The shame is you never lived authentic. Tell us, Picard. What is it that you want to tell us? He refuses to tell us. He always meant to be a female. Says, I think we both know where that's coming from, says Boltar. The over-righteous Jean-luc. You need others to say it. Because if they do it, it allows you to push the truth away. You're so obsessed with virtue. The very story you're telling me is one of good prevailing over. And he's like, don't say that word. Picard says, you don't know how it ends. You're right, because I don't think anybody knows how it ends. We got not Laris and baby kid Picard walking around the dungeon. There's random like people with swords and shit, like literally Game of Thrones is coming out, and Picard's like, there's always somebody back there. There always is. And now the mist, the smoke monster from Lost, perhaps, except it's white smoke, not black smoke. If the smoke gets you, I don't know. It kills you, I guess. So, yeah. This monster is about to take Captain Picard. Captain Kirk would never let this happen. Oh no, the monster decided to strangle not Laris, who is Laris. Okay, we switch back to the medical clinic. The doctor is back with her son. And of course, of all the things he chose to wear, he wore a spaceman uniform. He's got a helmet and a space shuttle. And Rios is like, you're a spaceman. And so the mother pulls down the face mask and says, I'm going to say some bad words. And they're actually translating the words on this episode. They almost never translate her words. So anyway, she's pissed. She's like, this is my clinic. I want the keys. And she demands the keys. And Rios is like, just keep an open mind. Anyway, she's about to open the door to see what's been going on with Picard. And she walks in, and there's Picard on the bed, and the Romulan woman with her eyes bugged up into her head and her ear open. And the mother's like, why are you walking like a serial killer? Rios is like, I can't tell you without breaking time. So, not Laris is being attacked by a monster who says you're not supposed to be here. And he's like, that means you die. And she, the monster or somebody takes the chain off of not Laris and chains Picard instead, baby Picard. So the doctor says we got to take him to the hospital. She's not equipped for this. Anyway, Rios calls Raffi on the comm badge and says we need a medical tool for his brain. And so they beam it into Rios's hand, and Rios hands it to the doctor. The doctor's like, what is this? How is this real? The doctor saw it beam in. She's like, what do you mean? Rios is just like, just use it. You're a doctor. It's for his brain. Like, that's going to teach her enough as what she knows how to use it. So the doctor says, am I going to kill him if I use this? And Rios says, I trust you. So the doctor, having no idea how this tool could possibly work, pushes the button and puts it near his head, which is, of course, exactly how you use that particular tool. So little boy Picard is telling not Laris, what if it's no different this time? What if it's exactly the same? She's like, if you don't do this, you're going to be stuck in here forever. But you're not alone. And Picard, little boy Picard, cracks a small smile. And Laris uses her superior Romulan strength to just break a solid metal brace off of Picard's foot. And as soon as the brace was broken, his brain became stable again. And now the doctor asks Rios, are you from outer space? And Rios, no, I'm from Chile. I just work in outer space, which is another callback to Star Trek IV, where Gillian, I think that's her name, says, let me guess, you're from outer space. And Kirk says, no, I'm from Iowa. I just work in outer space. She's like, oh, well, because I knew outer space was going to come into this sooner or later. Oh, Rios is from Chile. He just works out of space. And I thought Rios was from Brazil in first season, but whatever. I thought he was Portuguese, but apparently He's Chilean. So 7 is looking through the computers, even though they were locked out before. How Raffi was able to send this stuff to Rios when they were supposed to be locked out of the computer, I don't know. But 7 has already made it through the Borg encryption, and she was able to beam that stuff to Rios, and now 7 has total access to the ship's computer, and she was able to see the video recording of Jurati beaming off the ship, and that she had Borg implants with her. So now, not Laris, Picard's father, aka the therapist, old Picard, are all there in the room in the dungeon, or no, they're upstairs in the dirty version of the chateau. And now we got the moment when Baltar reveals that he's the father, and Captain Picard says, "You were relentless with your cruelty. You broke her." And little boy Picard says, "You broke her." And he says, "Am I? Perhaps, but not in the way you think. You couldn't save her from the monster." And now Baltar lifts up a book. He says, "Look at the end." He says, "The tunnels. There's 1,000 ways to die down there." That was his advice to little boy Picard. Anyway, we now see the crazy mother telling Picard to go down into the tunnels. It's like it's just a game. And little boy Picard says, "I'm frightened of the dark. You and me will go. Things will be better now." And she goes, "Shh." And you see now the mother was a crazy one the entire time. And Captain Picard, little boy Picard, dropped his book. And then they get 2 feet in, and Picard, his foot falls through the floor. Anyway, the father found him hours later, and he got him out. He got him out of the hole. And then the mother was crying. The mother's nuts. The mother is fucking nuts. Did she have is that a straitjacket? The father, I think, has his own straitjacket for the mother. Anyway, he locks them. He locks the mom in a room with no light. Rain's coming. "You never would have made it out," says the father. "She would have left you. In fact, she did. She did leave you. And she would have drowned." "There was always something wrong with your mother," says not Laris. And the father confirms, "Yep. The monsters were real." And now Picard is realizing he never really knew his father. Not Laris is still looking at the young Picard. He's like, You've done so much with this pain. You've saved worlds with this pain. So the entire reason Captain Picard did so well in Starfleet is because the pain. And because of that pain, he became a great Starfleet captain. And then little boy Picard pulled out a key, and he was about to open the mother's door. And then not Laris says, "Oh my God, there's more to this, isn't there?" And then Picard wakes up in real life. And by real life, I mean the TV show. And then not Laris is there next to him in bed, not in bed, at his side. And they lock eyes. So now the secret's out. Rios told the kid that he's a real life space alien who can make things appear out of thin air. The mother who's the doctor, says somebody tries to tell your kid they're aliens, they're not a good person, bring around your kid. And of course, Rios goes into this whole how he never really knew his dad thing. So Picard is kind of like his father figure. He feels like a father to Rios. Then the lady says, well, it's his loss that he doesn't feel like a son to him. And so Rios asks the doctor, what does she want? Says, a good guy. Rios says, well, if I wasn't a good guy, I'd become one right now. And she says, if you're lying, they will never find your body. Which was kind of the thing that started this whole thing off to begin with. So Rios asks, you want to see something cool? In Spanish, I assume. And, let's just beam over to the La Serena. The mother drops her coffee cup, and the kid drops his toy. He's like, this is my ship. This is my spaceship. And the kid yells, he's going to go touch everything. And the mother's just in shock. I guess he knew that Raffi and Seven had beamed off, because Seven and Raffi are back in Los Angeles looking for Jurati. So Seven is like, she's the Borg Queen. And Raffi says, don't call her the Borg Queen. And Seven's like, a lot of people's lives are going to depend on us figuring out where she was. And we get a clip as to where the Borg Queen was the last night. And she walked past into a bar where there's a band playing music. And she walks past the billiards table, gives the billiards player the stink eye. Anyway, she goes over to the window and starts smashing the window with her bare fist. And like the bartender's like, miss, no, don't break my window. And she just smashes the window, and she gets a breath of air. And Seven will say, it's the endorphins. That's what she was after. Okay. So Raffi and Picard are talking. He's like, keep safe, keep me informed. And then Picard, Laris has her ear in full visibility right now. But Picard's asking, what about Renee? And he's like, Renee, and he's like, Picard, you saved her. Okay, so Laris has a human ear. Right this second, Laris has a completely human ear. Okay, so Laris says, I got to show you something. And she touches her ear, and it turns into a Romulan ear. And he says, "Oh, Romulan, I knew it," says Picard. And she's like, "Yep, on occasion, a similar species is used. But the technology to go into somebody's brain, they has to recharge for 8 hours before she can use it again, because if you worked right away, it would make life too easy." So she's like, "Well, this whole mission, all of this is part of Q's plan." Picard has to take that into consideration. So he's like, "Whatever. What if he wants you to know it?" And Picard says, "There is no better teacher than one's enemy." And he's smiling. "I've seen him control the lesson his whole life." He's like, "What if the lesson he takes is that he's supposed to know Q? He's always filed Q as unknowable, but here he is, so late in his life, fixated on him. He needs this trial to happen. He's saying it's about me, but it's deeply personal. But it's him. If we understand why it is, we can go on offense finally. Offense against the Q." And she's like, flattered, but that must be beyond her capabilities. And Picard says, "Yours maybe, but there's someone else." "Oh, we're back to not Guinan." It's like, "Oh, no, thanks for sticking around an extra few days." He says, "You think," he's like, "You think I could ask? I could possibly keep you out of it?" She's like, "Is that what you did? Ask?" Ask usually comes with a question mark. And she's like, "You can't really want me to summon a Q." And she brings out this old fucking bottle, like a genie bottle. And she's like, "The millennia ago, her people and the Dezenians of the Q continuum struck a deal." He's like, "We're not going to call them gods." So the Elnorians believe that food and drink unite them. And so literally the bottle that her people in the Q continuum signed a peace deal to, Guinan just happens to have on Earth. So she can use that physical bottle to pour a drink, and once she pours a drink, that will summon a Q. You've got to just find the right chord and flick it back. Anyway, as soon as she opens the bottle, it's like Satan himself is released in the bar. There's lights are blinking. It's shaking like hell. Maybe that's just a random earthquake, but you get the attention of the player, our friendly neighborhood Q. She's got a drink up. She drinks it, and the shaking stops, but not before losing a whole bunch of glasses and some bar furniture. Poor Guinan looks like she's on fire. Now all the bottles of liquor are exploding. Oh, poor Guinan. Anyway, he's like, "What happened?" And Guinan says, "It didn't work. It didn't work." She's scared. She's like, "It's not supposed to not work." She doesn't understand. So now Seven and Raffi are in front of the broken window, and Raffi asks, "How do we track something we don't understand?" And so Seven pulls a glass bottle out of the garbage and smashes it on the floor next to all the glass from the broken window. And she's like, "Pull it up again." And of course, they've got a perfect video of Jurati breaking the window. And Seven is like, "It's endorphins." She's trying to speed up the process. The more endorphins, the faster the process. We're witnessing the birth of a new queen. And if that happens, forget about time. She'll want to start an empire. She'll assimilate every being on this planet. Borg will take over Earth before humanity can defend itself. Well, it sounds like first contact to me. So now 7 is like, we need Picard. So Picard says, tell me again. And not Guinan says, an Elnor summons a Q appears. And now a random guy comes walking down the steps. And Picard asks, is it him? And Guinan says no. Not Guinan, says, I'm sorry, we're closed. And he says, I'm sorry, the sign says you're open. And she says, owner trumps sign. Obviously, this guy is not your local random guy. He's like, come on, just one drink, I'll be out of your hair. And he's like, oh, you're the typical guy who orders a bourbon, but you really want a white wine. And you're going to read some boring ass nonfiction. So she gives him a bottle of a glass of white wine. He says, oh, you're very good. And she's like, I've done this for a while. But if it wasn't clear, he's not a random customer. It will be when he walks over and inserts himself into their conversation. He's like, you really got me pegged, except the nonfiction. He's more of a sci-fi guy. He's like, are either of you into sci-fi? He's like, you guys really aren't the spacey types? And Patrick Stewart says, most definitely not, which is the real truth. He's not a sci-fi person. And he says, you don't really think we're alone out there? She's like, I don't think we're alone down here. And this guy is like, for me, science is aspirational, especially the strange, less explainable. He's not talking about UFOs or aliens putting their John Hancocks on cornfields. He's like, what about this? And he brings out this video, and it's Picard beaming on the Fountain Avenue. Then he first got here. And so Guinan says, oh yeah, I used to have a camera system, but it was so glitchy you would think the bar was open for ghosts. But he says, all the same, and he pulls out a badge. And what is this? The LAPD are arresting. The LAPD are arresting Guinan and Picard. For what? For beaming into LA? And Picard is in handcuffs. Picard's in handcuffs. Guinan's in handcuffs. And end of episode. It's so effing ridiculous. And for whatever reason, once they said law enforcement, Picard threw his comm badge onto the floor. So he's effed. He's effed. The comm badge is gone. He has no way to contact anyone. And it's sad. I have no fucking clue what the hell I watched today. This was by far the worst and weirdest episode. Like, I thought last week's was bad, and it probably, it still is. But this episode, there's a lot more to it because it's longer. It's 10 minutes longer than last week's. But B, I have no fucking idea what happened or what went on. So Anyway, guys, I'm going to give this, well, I gave last week's a 0.5, so I guess this is a 0.25 out of 10. I don't know what else to give it. So 0.25 out of 10, and may God have mercy on your soul. Qapla all, Hurd out.